You can kind of break down like why should everybody invest in Bitcoin? Because I mean, some people they still might not be. We broke down what it is, but I think you should just kind of break it down like why should you invest in Bitcoin? Because some people they hesitate, they scared. Everybody, and especially this podcast, we primarily target the Black community, so I know we're afraid of what we don't understand. I get it.
And we don't understand a lot. Shit, we just gonna keep it a buck.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So here we go. So check this out. All right, so we in the middle of the pandemic. So we in the middle of the pandemic, and like here's one thing. Since we do have a Black podcast, there are reports saying by 2040, 2053 that there will be no Black wealth. So these are all the people included who are into options, you into stocks, you into everything you've already been doing. All right, they're already predicting you still ain't gonna have no wealth. So when you start looking at this, like we're playing the game that's already been won by people who already have a 400 to 500 year head start financially on us. All right, we came to this land, we built up the country, we had nothing given in return. They're still not gonna give it to you. So when you start putting all this into context, plus you got inflation eating your dollar, you had more money pumped into the system than ever before. Wall Street Journal. I read an article about them. They said, I think sometime this year, between now and 2025, we're going to experience a cash crisis similar or the same to the Great Depression. So the reason I can piece these things together, because I've been in Bitcoin so long that when I first got in here, I started looking at the top down to see. I tried to find holes in Bitcoin myself, but what I ended up doing was finding holes in every other financial system. So when the pandemic started, they gave out stimulus checks. The first thing I started seeing was signs that said, please bring exact change because we have a coin shortage, right? Now, you said something real dope a few minutes ago, follow the money. Everybody swear they knows finances, but they don't really follow or study the money. They don't study the dollar, but they study finances. What does that mean? You study the real estate, you study the stocks, the bonds, the mutual bonds, all this other stuff. You study that, that's finance, but the actual dollar, folks don't understand for real. So what gives this dollar value? Because there really is none. People believe value to be, well, I can spend it anywhere I want, so that makes it valuable. No, it doesn't. All right, so you had a coin. They're talking about a coin shortage going on. In my mind, I'm already thinking like, why the hell are y'all having a coin shortage? The coins are not made out of silver or gold or any precious metal. So why is there a coin shortage? You should just be able to print it. Because if it was made out of anything else other than just plated nickel, it can appreciate over time. That 1 quarter will not continuously be a quarter. So I started looking at these things, man, and add on top of that what they predict about Black wealth. The reason why it's most important to buy Bitcoin now, during the pandemic, like we talked about earlier, Bitcoin started out at like $3,600 in March. Right about now, it might be $37,000. That's a 10x. All right, that's a 10x. I got a coach of mine, a money coach. Her name is Sabrina Abraham. She tells me the number one rule to money is to stay ahead of inflation. And how far ahead of inflation do you want to be? So we have not felt the true, and I've done some reading, like I said, Wall Street Journals, all the other, insider places. We have not felt the strains of coronavirus economically. There's already predicted to be no Black wealth. Bitcoin is a low barrier entry. Anybody can buy it. Hell, I bought it 2 years being home from prison. And yeah, people talk about volatility, but they don't really study the dollar itself. The steady decline it's been since 1913. If a cheeseburger costs 61, if this cheeseburger costs 19 cents, it's 1961, and now it's $1.50 some cent, and it's the same burger, the same ingredients, the same materials, the same everything. How does it appreciate in value? There is no value there. So the importance of having Bitcoin is the fact of, like you mentioned, that freedom. A lot of people have not experienced financial freedom. And I don't care if you are $0 in debt. You have not experienced financial freedom if you have not been in Bitcoin. Meaning, have you ever tried to make a transaction outside your normal spending limit and the bank said, hold on, what are you doing? Or have you ever tried to deposit? You can't even withdraw certain types of money. You cannot transfer certain amounts of money on your own, money that you worked hard for. So, the reasons for Bitcoin number one is this decentralization, like you mentioned. When you are decentralized and you are free outside of an economic system, you think differently, you act differently. All right. Think about all the people who watched their money 10x during the pandemic, and other people watch their 401k crumble. All right. That's that. Number two, it helps. It helps kind of close this wealth gap a bit quicker, and it also gives you your own type of wealth. So it's all under your control. Number one. Number two, it's a money that works, and that might be the most hard. That might be the hardest thing for people to understand is that Bitcoin works. Why does it appreciate? Because it works. Why does money fail? Because it doesn't. Does that help answer a little bit?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And I wanna hit I wanna hit because you mentioned that because a lot of people they don't understand that you can use Bitcoin for transactions. And I mean, a lot of people, they like to play it and call it a stock. That's what a lot of people. I'm just saying, like a lot of people I talk, they try to refer to like, oh, I'm gonna get shares of Bitcoin. I mean, no, it's a actual currency. It's just a digital currency. It's just like that
Yeah.
dollar. And I'm glad you mentioned the dollar because I know I think I read somewhere might have been a few weeks ago. They were saying that like $100 back in like 1930, I think, or something like that. Today that $100 is worth like $3.50 or something like that. So
Right.
you can kind of you can get. That's what I'm saying. Like at the end of the day, we ain't gonna go too deep into this, but money is just paper. It don't have no backing anymore. Like that gold standard went out the window way back. If you really want to go
Mhm.
do your research on that. Meanwhile, you have Bitcoin. While people love to say it don't have no backing, I mean, who gives anything back? And it's the people. I mean, at the end of the day, that's who gives
Mhm.
anything value. And you have to realize, like, you don't have to have. I know a lot of people had this misconception that, oh, I don't like Bitcoin right now. Is I think, yeah, it's like at 37, 38,000, somewhere in there right now. And everybody loves saying, because I was like this, I get it. They was like, oh, I can't afford a Bitcoin. I can't afford. That's too expensive. I was like that back in 2016 when it was like $1,000 something like that. It was like I can't buy no Bitcoin. This what the hell? Like I ain't got this kind of money to sit
Yeah.
around. No, and you don't even have to get a whole Bitcoin. You can get fractions of Bitcoin. Just like I mean, like they do with stocks now. You can do fractional shares for stocks. You can get a fraction of Bitcoin. It's just like if I say,
Mhm.
you got $1, but 4 quarters can make that dollar. So you can still have a quarter. So
I like that.
like that's what like it's just pieces of it. So
Mhm.
it equates to a certain dollar amount, if you want to look at it that way, so you can understand the comparison. And I'm glad you
Mhm.
mentioned that about withdrawing money because that's what people don't realize. Like you really can't go to the bank and just be like, oh, like if you're a millionaire, you choose to have $1 million just straight in one account, don't want to do the 250 like everybody else do, $250, whatever. You want to go to the bank and say, I need to get all this out cash. They're gonna look at you like you crazy for one. Two, they're gonna question you and it's your money. Then they're gonna take you through this whole long drawn out process. And it's probably gonna take a few days to get you that money, if not weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly. I mean, it's a process that just speaks like it speaks to saying that hey, we control you. You know what I mean? Like even
yep,
if you have money if you have a 401k, look what happens. You worked 15 out of 30 years, right? You ready to pull something out. Hey, you gonna go through all these taxes, you're gonna go through all these fees and fines for hours you put in for your own 401k. What does that make sense? You know what I mean?
yeah,
And then also, the whole thought of the whole thought of people own the whole Bitcoin. So nowadays the craze is talking about like these things called Satoshis, the smallest bits that you can get of Bitcoin. Um, and they're like, and everybody thinks that, well, there's not enough Bitcoin to go around. There will always be enough Bitcoin to go around. All right. Not saying the whole Bitcoin, but there will be some Bitcoin to go around.
yep,
So as you spoke, is as you spoke, people think they need a whole one. Now, in one of my advanced courses, the main thing we talk about is, invoices in Bitcoin. If you look on my website right now, I accept Bitcoin as payment for anything I do because I had this thought. It was in the beginning of the year that Bitcoin continuously rise. It's right now. It's at some people's yearly salary. All right. So if you have a business, a side business, a hustle, whatever, you need to start accepting Bitcoin, especially if your business can do numbers like that, 5 to 6 figures, whatever, 7 figures, whatever. You need to start accepting payments in Bitcoin. All right. Because what will then happen is you will be able to, number one, become a global business. People can do business with you wherever. Like I have friends, I have people who want to hit me up like, hey man, I live in Ireland, how can we work? You already know what you gotta do. You gotta send to me in Bitcoin. There's no other way else it's gonna happen. I'm not trying to go. And then international business alone online is horrible. It's hard. Like I had a woman in the Cayman Islands. She couldn't use her traditional bank account. You feel me? Like
Yep.
Bitcoin opens up to global transactions. So what I'm saying here, like, yeah, buying Bitcoin is cool. It's still at a reasonable price. Like I know we both know people who randomly got 4K ready for 10% of a Bitcoin or whatever. But essentially here, like there's a different game to play, and it is a sense of urgency, because right about now you have people who have whole Bitcoins. You could do like the point one to point nine, but eventually those numbers, those types of units of Bitcoin, are just going to continuously get harder to get. So, which is why I look in my advanced course that's dropping in a few weeks. We want to get people to learn how to accept Bitcoin for payments, and then you can start seeing just how different Bitcoin can go for you. But people don't even know what that is. A lot of people don't even know you can accept Bitcoin as payment because they still think it as a stock. So there's a lot of limited mindsets on Bitcoin that just have to be really erased then for it to be embraced fully.